Have you ever wondered why some people seem to fall into addiction with no way back, while others mysteriously escape its grasp? Is it just a matter of willpower, or is there something deeper at play? Addiction isn't just about substances or compulsive behaviors. It's about an unseen void, a relentless search for something missing. And often what appears to be self-destruction is actually a hidden cry for meaning. Today we'll explore addiction through the lens of Carl Jung and Dr. Gabor Maté, uncovering why this cycle is so hard to break and what it reveals about the human mind. But more importantly, we'll examine how one can escape it. And trust me, this is not just another conversation about self-control. This is about understanding the human condition at its deepest level. Addiction is not simply a moral failing or a lack of discipline. It's an attempt, an unconscious effort, to soothe an inner wound. Most people don't fall into addiction for pleasure. They fall into it to escape discomfort, trauma, or an existential void. Carl Jung believed that addiction is a symptom of a psyche out of balance. When individuals cannot confront their inner conflicts, they seek relief through external means, substances, compulsions, distractions. The problem? This relief is always temporary, and what begins as an escape turns into a trap. Dr. Gabor Maté, one of the world's leading experts on addiction, explains that the root cause is always pain. As he says, don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain. Addiction isn't just about seeking pleasure, it's about numbing suffering. And that suffering is often traced back to something deeper than we realize. For many, that suffering begins in childhood. Unresolved trauma, a lack of emotional security, or a sense of abandonment can all plant the seeds of addiction. But the wounds aren't always obvious. Some people carry a silent void, a feeling of being unloved or unseen that follows them into adulthood. And here's what makes addiction so powerful. It doesn't just offer an escape. It offers a false sense of control. The addict believes that, for a brief moment, they are choosing their relief. But in reality, they are being controlled by something much deeper. Neuroscientists have found that addiction rewires the brain. The more we engage in an addictive behavior, the deeper the neurological pathways become. Over time, addiction ceases to be a choice. It becomes a conditioned response. Imagine a river carving through rock over centuries. The deeper the groove, the harder it is to change the flow. That's exactly what happens in the brain. Every time an addict gives in to their compulsion, they strengthen those neural pathways, making it harder to break free. The brain's reward system plays a crucial role. Addictive substances and behaviors flood the brain with dopamine, creating an artificial sense of pleasure. Over time, the brain adjusts, producing less dopamine naturally. This means the addict needs more stimulation just to feel normal. This is why many addicts feel powerless. They watch themselves repeat the same behavior, knowing it's destructive, but unable to stop. Their brain has been hijacked. But here's the important part. The brain is remarkably resilient. With the right steps, it can rewire itself. Not all addictions stem from childhood trauma, but studies show a strong link. Many addicts grew up in homes where emotional connection was absent. It's not just physical abuse that creates wounds, it's also the absence of emotional nurture. Think about this. When a child cries and no one responds, what message does that send? It teaches the brain that the world is not safe. It forces that child to self-soothe in any way possible. and often, those coping mechanisms follow them into adulthood. Maté explains that the brain develops through human connection. If a child's emotional needs are unmet, their stress response systems become dysregulated, making them more vulnerable to addiction later in life. But here's the twist. Even people with seemingly normal childhoods can fall into addiction. Why? Because addiction isn't just about trauma. It's about a void, a feeling that something is missing. And that void can exist even in the most privileged, successful individuals. Even those with a stable upbringing aren't immune. Today's world is engineered for addiction. From social media to endless entertainment, we are constantly bombarded with stimuli that keep us chasing dopamine hits. Every like, every notification, every binge-worthy show, it's all designed to keep us hooked. Consumerism tells us we need more distractions, more pleasure, more validation. The result? An entire generation addicted to stimulation, terrified of stillness. But what happens when you strip all that away? When you sit in silence with yourself? For many, that's when the void becomes unbearable. And instead of confronting it, they escape it. So how do you break free? How do you escape the grip of addiction when it's so deeply wired into your brain? The first step is awareness. Jung believed that healing begins when we recognize the shadow, the hidden aspects of our psyche that we suppress. Until we acknowledge the true root of our addiction, we will remain trapped in the cycle. The second step is connection. Addiction thrives in isolation. Healing happens through meaningful relationships, whether with a support group, close friends, or a mentor who understands the struggle. The third step is restructuring the brain. Science confirms that the brain can rewire itself, even after years of addiction. But this requires consistent, intentional effort, creating new habits, new thought patterns, and new ways of responding to stress. And here's a game changer: mindfulness. Neuroscientists have found that mindfulness meditation literally rebuilds the brain, strengthening the areas responsible for self-control and emotional regulation. It's not just about sitting quietly. It's about rewiring your entire perception of reality. Carl Jung proposed that the ultimate cure for addiction isn't just psychological, it's spiritual. He believed that addiction represents a search for transcendence. The addict is seeking something beyond themselves, something that addiction momentarily provides but ultimately takes away. Jung saw recovery as a process of individuation, a journey of integrating all aspects of the self, rather than running from them. The path forward isn't in mere abstinence, it's in discovering meaning. Gabor Maté echoes this idea. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. It's connection to oneself, to others, and to a purpose greater than the addiction itself. Addiction is not about weakness. It is about pain. And the key to overcoming it is not just in quitting the substance or behavior, but in addressing the void that made it necessary in the first place. If you or someone you know is struggling, remember this: healing is possible. The brain can change, the mind can transform, and the soul can be restored. The question is, are you ready to take that first step? If this video resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear this message. Let's break the cycle of addiction together.